Matthew Bell with Alzheimer'sProof.com. Today I want to continue a series that I've been doing on cleaning and disinfecting, and I want to specifically talk about how to use a vinegar wash on fruits and vegetables in order to clean them and make them ready to be eaten, especially if you're in a household where somebody might forget to wash the fruit appropriately before they consume it. So why is this an issue? Fruits and vegetables right from the grocery store or from the supermarket or from the produce stand can have various things on them. They can have chemical residues, pesticides, herbicides, and the like of this from the actual farming process. But they can also have bacteria and other germs on them. And that can be a function of just the shipping. It can be a function of people touching the produce. You know, somebody might reach out and grab a plum and then change their mind, or they might reach out and try to make a determination as to the ripeness and touch it and place it back into the basket. Any number of things that might introduce germs into the process, but the idea is you want to properly clean the fruit or the vegetable before you eat it, before you cook with it. And obviously with Alzheimer's disease, we're dealing with people cognitively impaired who aren't going to remember to take those steps, or at least who aren't going to be reliable at remembering to take those cleaning steps prior to eating the food. Now this is part of the series on disinfection and cleaning because it does fit in, but unlike some of the other projects that we've tackled, like cleaning surfaces in the kitchen and bathroom and things like this, you're not going to want to use harsh chemicals. So bleach, as we have discussed in the past, is well known as sort of the gold standard for disinfection. Bleach is going to kill almost anything you want to kill, but you're not going to want to bleach a banana before you eat it. You're not going to want to bleach an apple, because especially an apple, probably because the skin is edible in an apple. We have to clean in such a way that we don't undermine the edibility of the food that we're trying to disinfect or clean. The benefit then of the vinegar wash is that you can prepare a bundle of fruits or vegetables. You can then leave them sit so that the person with Alzheimer's disease can simply go and partake of these fruits and vegetables without having to worry about cleaning them first. A side benefit is that clean fruits and vegetables can last a little bit longer. They are less likely to mold or to decay, and so you can somewhat improve the shelf life of these things by making sure that they're properly cleaned. Now this is going to work for fruits or vegetables where you eat the skin, so for example a grape or an apple. It's also going to work for fruits or vegetables that you remove the skin, banana, kiwi, and the reason for this is sometimes in the process of removing the skin you can actually introduce bacteria from the outside to the inside. So if you take a fruit or vegetable that has some bacteria on the outside and you put a knife onto it, let's say you cut it in half, you might press some of the bacteria from the surface into the edible portion and contaminate it that way. Also with dirty hands, let's say on a banana and you remove a dirty peel, if you then touch the banana with the same hands that you used to remove the peel, you can introduce contaminants into the edible portion. One of the important things is going to be to remember to wash your own hands at various steps. So let's say you take a dirty banana and you peel it. Well, before you touch the edible portion, you're going to want to wash your hands from having touched the peel. Now you don't have to be paranoid about these things, but the person with Alzheimer's disease is unreliable at washing his or her hands, washing fruit. The more that you can do to try and guarantee that the environment is safe and that anything that they might touch is safe to eat is going to minimize the chance of them getting some kind of a gastrointestinal bug or becoming ill from some kind of a contaminant on the fruit. But it's also going to work for organic or non-organic, so some people will choose to purchase organic because it is less likely to have, or is guaranteed to have, depending on the producer, is guaranteed to have no pesticides, no herbicides, and things like this. Well, it still might have bacteria just from the examples that we just previously gave from people reaching out, handling the fruit before you come to it. You yourself might even introduce bacteria onto the thing just in terms of transporting it and placing it into a storage bin. So the primary thing we're going to be using is vinegar, but some people also combine hydrogen peroxide as kind of a 1-2 punch. So generally it's not mixed together, but it's hydrogen peroxide applied as a secondary measure after the vinegar has already been applied, and we'll kind of describe how that would go. As a preliminary point, I should emphasize that cleaning and disinfecting are two different things, technically speaking. So by cleaning something, we really just mean removing dirt from the surface, possibly removing or reducing germ populations, but a cleaning process, strictly so-called, doesn't kill germs. Disinfection, on the other hand, is the process that is designed to kill the germs. So you really want to combine these. So disinfection usually works best on a clean surface, and contrary-wise, after you've disinfected, you probably want to remove the dead bacterium and other germs. And so cleaning and disinfecting can kind of work together, and they can actually be staggered. So you could clean a surface, disinfect it, and then clean it again to make sure that not only are all the germs killed, but they're also removed. There's also going to be different levels to cleaning. So let's call a low level cleaning maybe just a quick rinse. If you take an apple from the store and just rinse it off quickly, we might say that that's a low level cleaning. You probably remove some dirt, you may have removed some of the germs, but a quick rinse is unlikely to make a major impact in the germ population on that particular apple, if there is one. On the other hand, a higher level cleaning might be something like getting a scouring brush out and really putting some detergent on there and really scraping the surface. But once again, with fruits and vegetables, most detergents or many detergents probably not going to be something you're going to want to put onto something edible. And in addition to that, a scouring process can damage the skin, might penetrate the fruit or vegetable surface, and might be counterproductive to the whole entire point of this, which is to make the fruit or food item edible and safe. So rinsing it by itself is usually unreliable. It doesn't kill germs. It's not going to remove everything. And the third thing, and I get into this in other videos, is tap water itself can actually contain contaminants. And so actually by simply rinsing with tap water, you might be introducing contaminants onto the food surface depending on the quality of water in your area. Now the vinegar wash works because of the pH, the acidity of the vinegar. The acidity of the vinegar is such that bacterial cell membranes are unable to live in that environment, and many times they will burst, killing the bacterium. But the vinegar can also free up certain residues from chemicals, but even soaking in water is a little bit better than doing a quick rinse. A couple of other things: you don't want to peel the fruit. If it's an edible fruit like a banana, you want to put a peeled banana into the vinegar wash. You would want to leave the skin on. The whole idea is to make the skin germ-free, or as germ-free as possible, so that when the person consumes the fruit, they don't have to worry about contaminating or getting germs into themselves. You're also going to want to watch the container. So when you go from a dirty container, once you've cleaned and disinfected the fruit, if you go and put it back into the same dirty container, you're likely to reintroduce whatever dirt or bacteria might have been on the surface of the container. So once you clean and disinfect the fruit, you're going to want to move it to a clean container. And that is going to go for, again, washing hands, surfaces. If you use a kitchen sink, which you can, you're going to want to disinfect the sink first. So that you would use bleach for, almost certainly, or some chemical could be used for the sink. Once the sink is cleaned and disinfected, then you could use it for the soak, and then you would remove the fruit and put it into a clean basket or container. A couple of words just on the strength. The stronger the vinegar solution is, the more likely it is to be able to kill the bacterium. So some people recommend vinegar and water in a 1:3 ratio. So 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water. So if you have a total of 4 parts, 1 of which is vinegar and 3 is water, then the vinegar is in a 25% solution. If you make it 1:2, then the vinegar is 33%. If it's 1:1, it's 50%. Sometimes I'll just use straight vinegar. There is a sense in which using straight vinegar to cover fruit is going to go through a lot of vinegar. There's a cost component to this as well. If you wanted to be strict about it, I don't think that there's any real deficit in just pouring a bowl full of vinegar and setting the fruit inside of it, except that it's more vinegar than you probably need to perform the task of disinfection. So most people are going to dilute it somewhat. But if it's diluted too much, then the vinegar is not really going to operate the way you want it to or the way you need it to. So I would say stick with something like a 1:3, 1:2, or possibly 1:1 ratio, so that at most you've got 50% vinegar and at least you've got 25%, somewhere in that range. That's going to give you the best cost versus impact, cost versus function relationship. I have a few fruit and vegetable items here just for illustration purposes. I've got some avocados in here. I've got an orange, and I have a new avocado, and what I wanted to point out with this is the fact that sometimes the fruit obviously comes with a sticker, and so you're going to want to remove the sticker from the food before you put it into the wash. Otherwise the portion of the fruit under the sticker isn't going to be washed, and the sticker's going to have to come off before it's eaten, so you don't want a tiny little patch that's not, clean. I'm thinking of this again as a cost-effective way to reduce the risk that's associated with eating unwashed fruit or unwashed vegetables. It's not going to be hospital-grade disinfection we're talking here. We're not talking total sanitation. You can get really deep in the weeds when you start to look at blog posts that describe the acetic acid content of the vinegar. Is it 5%? Is it 8%? You know, if you're going to use hydrogen peroxide, that opens up an entire other conversation about the potency of the hydrogen peroxide. But in general terms, what I'm envisioning here is simply you are taking fruit that is unwashed or vegetables that are unwashed, and we're going to be reducing the risk that's associated with anything being on the surface, whether it's pesticides or whether it's some kind of a germ. So once you remove the stickers, I have them here just in a bowl. We discussed the fact that you could use an undiluted mixture, but that's not going to be as cost effective. Sometimes I'll do that, I'll just pour vinegar in here, but that's quite a bit of vinegar if you're going to fill up this entire bowl. So the way I'm going to operate it is I'm going to make it about 50-50. I'm not measuring anything, I'm just going to eyeball it. Once again, bleach is the gold standard for disinfection and sanitization and things like that, but we're not going to pour bleach on food items. And the same would go for Clorox wipes. We're not going to use anything harsh chemicals. That's one of the advantages of this procedure. So the way we're going to do it is I'm going to take the vinegar, and I have here just white distilled vinegar basically, and it says it's diluted down to 5% acidity. And I'm just going to fill up half the bowl. So I'm literally just going to take this and pour the vinegar straight in here. You can kind of see that. I mean, it's roughly half. I don't know if it's perfect. Now you can use tap water. For a lot of people, tap water is going to be the only water that you have available. But I do have additional content on the possible contaminants that might be in tap water. So if you know or you suspect that your tap water isn't the best, or if you're just not sure, and you have the option to use distilled water or filtered water, it's probably a preferable option. But if you have only a limited supply of filtered or distilled water, like if you have it in a pitcher or something, then you might want to keep it for drinking purposes and just use your tap water for this. But I do have a filter. I have a filter right next to it, and so I am going to just switch so that my filtered water comes out, and you can see it coming out like that. I'm going to fill up the bowl with the filtered water. Because of the shape of the bowl, I almost certainly put in more vinegar than I needed to. But the next step would just be to take the fruit or the vegetables and just kind of move them around. I'm going to manipulate them a little bit and just make sure that they're all covered and that you have any obvious grime and dirt has been removed. One of the things that I'll probably do, because you want to keep this stuff and let it sit, have some paper towels handy, you want to keep this stuff and let it sit for approximately 10 minutes. They're mostly covered. If you can, cover them all the way. I didn't want to fill it all the way up to the top because I'm likely to make a mess here. But I'm going to come back and just kind of manipulate them as we let the thing sit for approximately 10 minutes. You'll notice with disinfection that any disinfecting agent is going to have an application time, and I've gotten into this in other videos on various websites. You'll see how much contact time the chemical has to have with the surface in order to appropriately disinfect it. 10 minutes just seems to be kind of a rough number that keeps coming up with respect to these vinegar wash concoctions, and so that's what I'm going to go by. Now, if like mine, your fruit doesn't sit so that it's completely submerged, you are going to want to rotate it around to spread around the vinegar contact over the course of time, and you might even want to give it a few extra minutes. One word of caution, I have left things in the vinegar water for too long. Some skins are very thick and they don't allow water and the vinegar to permeate into the fruit, and other ones seem to allow that. So strawberries, for example, are one that allows it. Plums also seem to allow it. I'm not sure if that's just because I had the stem out and the inside of the pulpy part of the plum was exposed, but the reason I'm saying this is if the vinegar gets in, I don't think that it's going to hurt you, but instead of tasting plum, you're going to taste like vinegar plum, and so you don't want to let it in there for too long. Just soak it 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like I said, if you have some issues or you want to give it a little bit of extra time, but don't leave it in there overnight or you're going to end up running the risk of having vinegar inside of the fruit. But once you're done, once you've left it for that amount of time, now it's time to rinse it off. And so what I'm going to do is two things. First of all, I'm going to take the original bowl that my fruit came in and make sure that we wash this. So I'm going to wash this bowl. I don't see any reason why you can't, use regular dish detergent. And then I'm actually going to disinfect the bowl itself. Once again, for this purpose, I'm going to use vinegar. You can dilute it again with water, fill it up, and then ideally you would let that also sit for 10 minutes. That's going to be the clean bowl. And once we have a clean bowl to put them in, I'm going to rinse the bowl out, dry it out. I use the filtered water to rinse it. I'm going to dry it with a paper towel. Now I have a clean, disinfected bowl to put things into. I'm going to tear out a little bit of this paper towel, just kind of set it down on the surface. You want to make sure your surface is clean. Mine is. And then you're just going to rinse the fruit off. Now you can do this a couple of different ways. You can get a colander, put it in there, dump it. I'm just going to hold the side of the bowl carefully and pour the liquid out. Once the bowl has been emptied, now I'm going to fill it with clean water, let it sit a little bit more, and then dump that. I'm going to take a paper towel, take each of the items out now that they're clean, pat them dry, and put them on the clean paper towel. Once I have patted the fruit dry, maybe leave it sit for a little bit, especially if it's going to be in a serving bowl. I'm going to take it and put it into the clean bowl. Now I used avocados and oranges, and hopefully your Alzheimer's afflicted loved one isn't just going to sit and eat an avocado. I mean, I don't know if you could do that. I guess you could. But you can do this with apples. You can do it with bananas on the outside, the skins, and just leave the fruit sit so that the person with Alzheimer's disease doesn't have to remember to wash the fruit. If they do remember to wash the fruit, there's no harm. They're simply washing it again, with the caveat that if they use contaminated tap water and you're concerned about that, you might want to try to address that using some method of restricting their access to the faucet or making sure that you only have filtered water coming through. You can do that with a whole house filter. But apart from those concerns, the real issue here was simply to try to make it less likely that the person with Alzheimer's could ingest some harmful chemical or some kind of a germ on an unwashed piece of fruit because they don't remember to clean it before they eat it. Vinegar gives you a very quick way of doing that, very cost-effective way. It's not going to be hospital-grade disinfection, but it is going to do better than simply having the unwashed fruit. Some people use the hydrogen peroxide as a 1-2 punch, and what you would do there is you would dilute the hydrogen peroxide, you would soak the fruit in the vinegar, then you'd soak it in diluted hydrogen peroxide. The reason you don't combine the two is because it's unstable. I think it's called peracetic acid, and it is effective, but if you combine it for too long, it becomes unstable, and I guess it means it doesn't have its potency anymore. Now, hydrogen peroxide does have to remain in a dark container or it will be deactivated. So I hope you found something of use in this video. I know it was kind of off the beaten path, but for me, I know my dad loved to just grab fruit, and he was a bit uneven about remembering to wash his hands. Maybe he's you've got many other issues. There can be germs on the person's hands themselves, and that presents an entire other issue in terms of hygiene. But at least you can remove the dirt and some of the chemicals on the fruit, make it a little less likely that they're going to ingest something bad. So if you found something of use in this video, I ask that you like it, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be alerted to new content as it becomes available. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video. Thank you so much.